Purslane is the plant most people rip out of the ground without realizing they may be throwing away one of the most nutrient-dense edible leaves on Earth. It grows in sidewalk cracks. It spreads across dry soil. Farmers call it a weed, but researchers have spent decades pointing out something strange about it. This low red-stemmed plant is unusually rich in omega-3s for a leafy vegetable, packed with vitamins and minerals, and eaten across parts of Asia, the Mediterranean, Mexico, and the Middle East, while much of the modern world treats it like a garden mistake. Its name is purslane, scientific name, Portulaca oleracea, a small annual succulent with smooth reddish stems, spoon-shaped leaves, and tiny yellow flowers that open in strong sunlight. It hugs the ground, stores water in its tissues, and survives heat that kills softer crops. It can grow where the soil is poor, where rain is scarce, and where other edible greens simply give up. That alone would make it interesting, but the real surprise is what is inside the leaves. Researchers have described purslane as one of the richest green plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, the omega-3 fat known as ALA. Not fish oil, not a supplement, a weed. And that is where the mystery begins. Why does a plant this useful live such a double life? Why is it sold in markets in one country and sprayed with herbicide in another? Why do some people cook it with tomatoes, yogurt, eggs, or lentils, while others do not even know its name? And how did one of the oldest edible plants in human history end up with the reputation of a pest? To answer that, you have to go back far before modern nutrition labels, before organic grocery stores, before the omega-3 industry turned a fatty acid into a billion-dollar health symbol. Purslane appears to have been with us for a very long time. Agricultural and horticultural sources describe it as an ancient food plant, one that was eaten and cultivated thousands of years ago. It spread widely across warm and temperate regions and became naturalized almost everywhere humans disturbed the soil. That detail matters. The same trait that made it useful also made it suspicious. Purslane followed people. It appeared in fields, along paths, near houses, beside crops. A plant that grows wherever humans go rarely gets romanticized. It gets classified, controlled, and pushed aside. Then science started noticing what tradition already knew. In 1992, a widely cited paper in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition helped bring attention to purslane as a source of omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants. Later reviews kept repeating the same basic message. Purslane is not just edible, it is nutritionally unusual. It contains meaningful amounts of ALA, along with vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene-related compounds, minerals, and a range of phytochemicals that made researchers look at it not just as food, but as a possible functional crop. Some reviews even called it a promising plant for future agriculture. But there is an important detail hidden inside the headline. When people compare purslane to salmon, they are not talking about the exact same kind of omega-3 in the same biological form. Salmon is known for EPA and DHA, the long-chain marine omega-3s. Purslane is known mainly for ALA, the plant omega-3. Your body can convert some ALA into EPA and DHA, but not very efficiently. So the comparison is dramatic, but it can also be misleading if it is oversimplified. What makes purslane extraordinary is not that it replaces fish perfectly. It is that a common leaf growing in dry soil contains enough omega-3 to force nutrition science to take a weed seriously. And the numbers kept stacking up. Extension and review sources describe purslane as unusually high in omega-3 compared with most leafy greens. Some papers highlighted that it contains several times more omega-3 than spinach. On top of that, the plant is mostly water, very low in calories, and still manages to carry vitamin E, vitamin C, potassium, magnesium, and antioxidant compounds. In a world obsessed with expensive superfoods, purslane almost feels like a bad joke. It is free in some backyards. It survives neglect, and yet nutritionally, It behaves like a plant that should have a premium label on a refrigerated shelf. So why is it still called a weed? Because weeds are not defined by nutrition. They are defined by behavior. Purslane grows fast. It sprawls low across the soil and forms thick mats. It tolerates heat, drought, compacted ground, and disturbance. It can regenerate from stem fragments. A single plant can produce huge numbers of tiny seeds, and those seeds can remain viable in soil for decades. Some weed science sources describe seed survival that can stretch 20 to 40 years. For a farmer trying to protect yield, that is not a miracle plant, that is a nightmare. A nutritious species can still be an agricultural enemy if it competes with crops at the wrong time and place. Purslane also has a survival trick that sounds almost too advanced for something people step on. Under stress, it can shift the way it handles photosynthesis, helping it conserve water more effectively in harsh conditions. That gives it a kind of metabolic flexibility that makes sense in deserts, hot fields, and climate-stressed landscapes. In plain terms, purslane is built to outlast the day. It is not delicate, it does not need pampering. It is exactly the kind of plant that thrives in the future many crops may struggle to face. That should have made it a star. Instead, it got trapped between categories. Too wild to be fully domesticated, too common to be prestigious, too aggressive to be welcomed by growers, too associated with poverty, foraging, or traditional cooking to fit neatly inside industrial food systems. This happens to plants more often than we admit. Modern agriculture tends to reward uniformity, shelf life, transportability, and predictable harvests. Purslane offers something else: resilience, nutrition, and spontaneity. It shows up on its own, and systems built on control rarely celebrate what they did not choose. Still, around the world, people never stopped choosing it. In Mexico, it is verdolaga, cooked in stews and sauces. In parts of the Mediterranean, it is added to salads or yogurt dishes. In the Middle East and South Asia, it appears in traditional preparations that treat it not as an intruder, but as a seasonal green. In these food cultures, purslane is not a contradiction. It is simply a plant. Good plants are eaten. Bad plants are not. The modern confusion comes from forgetting that many edible species were once gathered before they were ever farmed at scale. And now climate pressure is changing the conversation. Researchers and agricultural thinkers have started looking more closely at underused crops, neglected vegetables, and stress-tolerant species that can handle heat and poor soils. Suddenly, purslane looks less like a garden nuisance and more like a candidate for a harsher century. It grows with little input. It tolerates drought. It produces edible biomass quickly. It contains nutrients people actively seek out. In an age of fertilizer costs, water stress, and fragile supply chains, that combination is hard to ignore. There is also something deeper happening here. Purslane exposes how badly modern culture can misread value. We are good at noticing rarity. We are not always good at noticing usefulness. A rare berry from a distant mountain becomes aspirational. A hardy leaf that grows beside a driveway becomes invisible. We trust packaging more than persistence. We assume that if something were truly important, it would be expensive, branded, and hard to get. Purslane breaks that logic. It is common, and that may be the main reason it was dismissed. Of course, there is one more twist. Even miracle plants come with reality. Purslane contains high levels of oxalates, so people prone to kidney stones or with certain medical concerns should be careful and not treat it like an unlimited food. That does not cancel its value. It just returns it to the real world, where every food has context, dose, and trade-offs. Purslane is not magic. It is better than magic. It is a useful plant that survived hype because it never needed hype in the first place. If you know what to look for, the plant is easy to recognize. Low to the ground. Thick red or reddish-green stems radiating outward from a central root. Smooth, fleshy leaves clustered at the joints. tiny yellow flowers. It often appears in hot months, especially in disturbed soil, garden beds, field edges, sidewalks, and cracks where water disappears fast. That visual toughness is the whole story in miniature. Purslane looks like it does not need permission to exist. Because it doesn't. And maybe that is the real reason the world has never known what to do with it. Purslane does not fit the story we like to tell about valuable food. Valuable food is supposed to be scarce, delicate, optimized, protected. Purslane is abundant, stubborn, and wild at the edges. It feeds people without asking to be admired. It survives where systems fail. It offers nutrition from neglected ground. And in that sense, purslane is more than a weed, and more than a superfood. It is a reminder that sometimes the future of food is already here, lying flat against the dirt, waiting for us to stop calling it a problem.